The DBX 286s channel strip has sat quietly behind me on these videos for the last couple of years, but was it worth it? So a couple of years ago, I found myself doing more YouTube videos, podcasts, voiceovers, and I was in the market looking for a channel strip which would enable me to speed up my workflow, essentially printing in the processing, either going straight into the camera or whatever device I was recording into, and massively cutting down the workflow, which I had to do with the audio in post-production. So I was very much in the market for a product like the DBX 286s, asking around some friends that work within radio and run studios. This was a channel strip which got recommended time after time. Checking it out again online as well, it was very much a recommended product, especially when you consider that it's around the £150 mark UK. So it's a relatively inexpensive piece of hardware which promises to do a lot. Let's take a look at the features. So when you first get the 286s set up, the easiest way to do it is to run the output into your DAW, get a set of headphones on, and start to work through the sections from left to the right. And the first section you're gonna get to is the mic preamp section, where you wanna dial in your gain to be hitting regularly around the -10 section. Obviously, you don't want to be wandering in often into the 0, and certainly, of course, not into that warning red clip light. So hitting around consistently the -10 is going to get you a nice safe level. On the right hand side of that, you've got 48 phantom power for your condenser microphones. Next to that, you've also got an 80 Hz high pass filter. That's super handy just to get rid of any low end rumble. Once again, it's all going to help to get you a more professional sounding voiceover or voice when you're printing in. Next to that, you've also got a bypass knob. That's really handy, so you can A/B and hear exactly what the DBX is doing. Next to that, you've got a compressor, 2 knobs, the drive knob which controls the gain reduction and the density knob which controls the release. For my purposes, for recording the voice, I use around 6 to 9 dB of gain reduction, dialing that in using the drive knob. That avoids over compression, but just gives me a really nice compressed quality to my vocal presentation. And for the density, or for the release knob, somewhere between 0 and 4 I found gives me a nice smooth sound on the voice. If you want to speed up your mixing workflow in your home studio, then you're going to need a method. I have devised a 7-step musical mixing plan. You can grab it for free right now. The link is below this video. Next up, the de-esser section, where you can choose the frequency of the essing that you want reduced, and the threshold section, where you can choose at what level you want it to kick in. Really handy. You've got the green and the red lights here, so you can actually actively see when the de-esser is working and kicking in and doing its job. Next up, an enhancer or a 2-band EQ, particularly useful with vocals in mind, to add some body with a low frequency detail to the voice and some nice high frequency sparkle too. At the end here, an expander gate, very handy as a noise gate, particularly if you're working in a house where you've got other noises going on. You can easily get a good professional result. This will work as a noise gate, essentially closing when you're not speaking and making sure that it's kept open when you are. You can adjust that by dialing in your threshold. For a voice, I found around 30 dB works just great for me, and keep the ratios fairly low for voice as well. As with the de-esser, you've got a red and a green light, so you can see when the gate is opening and closing. This is super useful when you're dialing in and getting your settings. And finally, at the end there, you've got an output knob. I think that's fairly self-explanatory. Obviously, if you see the red light clipping, turn it down. Next up, let me show you what this setup right now sounds like with the DBX on and off. I can do that really easily with the handy processing knob on and off. So this is what it sounds like on, obviously, which I've been using throughout this video. Now let's switch it off. And this is what it sounds like when the DBX 286s's processing is being bypassed, and I'm just using its 48 volts of phantom power going straight into my Nikon camera. Okay, let's switch it back on. Okay, let's quickly flip over the DBX and take a look at the back, where you've got a mic input XLR, you've also got a 1/4 inch input, and you've got a 1/4 inch output. You've also got a 1/4 inch insert as well, which allows you to add an external processor like an EQ, delay unit, etc. So what do I think of the DBX 286s? Well, I've been using it for a couple of years, and it has massively sped up my workflow. That's what I bought it for, and it's done the job really well. These days, I've got in such a smooth workflow with it that I just print straight into the camera, or if I'm using my phone, I'll also print straight into my phone as well, just adjusting the output knob. And when it comes to video editing, everything is printed already for me when it comes to audio, so I don't have to do any post processing whatsoever. Just check that the levels are fine and I am ready to go. And in that sense, it's done an enormously good job of making my life a lot easier if you're thinking about doing YouTubing, voiceover work, podcasts. It's a really inexpensive way to get your vocal processed professionally and speed up your workflow. And of course, I use this piece of gear solely for doing these videos and for recording voiceovers and for podcasts. But of course, you could use it on just about anything in your home studio. But for my purposes, was it worth getting this channel strip? 100% yes, I recommend it. For £150, still reckon it's pretty hard to beat. It's a really good piece of gear which you can set, forget, and speed up your workflow. Any questions about the DBX 286s, then drop them in the comments box below. I've been Johnny Good for Real Home Studio. Have yourself a great day.